Well, it's another day of Halloween horrors. And so, I wonder what's on today. Well, it seems like what the telly is telling me that this is just one of those days when you're feeling a little dead.
Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. The grub is downright gruesome, but your appetite's obey. 'Cause food's a little funny, food's a little funny, food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe, your favorite meals on wheels. The menu is disgusting and it's full of special deals. Nothing here is good for you, so grab yourself a tray. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Gobble up your order quick before it runs away. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Why not visit after school and have yourselves a bite? An appetizing appetizer certain to delight. We haven't done it right unless it makes your teeth decay. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. The grub is downright gruesome, but your appetite's obey. 'Cause food's a little funny, food's a little funny, food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe.
Hey everyone, it's Don J. Corleone here, and I'm here with episode 12 of Halloween Horror Movies Season 4. In this episode, what is going to be today's episode? Well, today's episode is going to be for yet another requested one for this season. And this one was another request from the very user who's been a part of this channel since the day it started, Lukimus Prime. And what was this other request he requested me? Well, he considers this movie to be his favorite comedy movie of all time. And it's one directed by Edgar Wright and stars his two biggest collaborators, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And this was their first one they did together. And it's the first of a certain trilogy Edgar Wright has. And this is one involving zombies. And that film is going to be for none other than 2004's Shaun of the Dead. So what's this plot of this movie? Well, Shaun, played by Simon Pegg, doesn't have a very good day. So he decides to turn his life around by getting his ex to take him back. But he times it for right in the middle of what may be a zombie apocalypse. But for him, it's an opportunity to show everyone he knows how useful he is by saving them all. All he has to do is survive and get his ex back. Yeah. How's this made? Well, Shaun of the Dead was developed from an episode of Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright's sitcom Spaced. The episode art was written by Pegg and Jessica Stevenson and directed by Wright, and it saw Pegg's character on the influence of after playing the video game Resident Evil 2, hallucinating that he's fighting off a zombie invasion. With a mutual appreciation for George A. Romero's Dead trilogy of zombie films, Pegg and Wright decided to write their own zombie film. They conceived it in late 1999 and pitched it to Film 4, who took it on until their production budget was cut back. And Wright was still invested in production and refused to take television directing jobs until Shaun of the Dead was made, and it left him in some debt for a while. Other companies then passed on it, and according to Edgar Wright, it's because they weren't sure what the tone was and said it wasn't all that scary and not that funny, they just didn't really get it. Then after 18 months, Working Title Films picked up the movie, which Wright felt was ironic as the film mocks the classic British rom-coms that Working Title makes. The film was then announced at Cannes Film Festival in 2002. And then Wright said both that he suggested the film was in a cab with Pegg after the excitement of filming the zombie scene in space, and while watching a horror film with both Pegg and Nick Frost. They began developing in earnest after playing the Resident Evil late one night himself and going out early hours in the morning, wondering what a British person's reaction to the zombie apocalypse would be. And he considered the lack of firearms typical American zombie movies, and his experience of a day's early morning walk to the shop turned into a scene in the film where Shaun does the same thing. Then another influence from Wright's life came from how he missed the 2001 foot-and-mouth epidemic by simply not having paid attention to the news for a fourth night, and turning his television on one day and seeing his cattle being burnt, and left him confused. And because of this, he said it was plausible that the world could have been ending and those two guys could be the last to know. They'd skip over the news on television in the film. And the gig even has Shaun and Ed spending their time at the Winchester. It also comes from the actors' lives, and Pegg and Frogs always used to go to the same bar all the time together, which Edgar had constantly convinced them not to. So anyway, after the film was shot and marketed, Shaun of the Dead premiered in London on March 29, 2004, would be theatrically released in the United Kingdom on April 9, 2004, but the United States wouldn't really get the movie until September 24th, 2004. And when it came to the reactions, it was met with critical acclaim and commercial success. It grossed over $30 million worldwide on a budget of $6.1 million and received 2 nominations at the British Academy Film Awards. It has since then been ranked 3rd on the Channel 4 list of 50 greatest comedy films ever made, and it quickly acquired a cult following. In the film studies, the film is often seen as a product of post-9/11 anxiety, as well as a model for transnational comedy. The spread of zombiesm in the film has been used as a model example for disease control. Now, as for my reaction, well, y'all know, I was obviously requested to review this from Lukimus Prime. His first was Silence of the Lambs, and his second request was this movie. So, this review is of course going to be for this movie. And I easily really love this movie. I think it's definitely one of the greatest comedies ever made. I can't begin to count the reasons why I love this movie. The acting's top-notch, the dialogue has you quoting for years to come, the directing is brilliant, and there's the zombies and the gore. But let's just say that Shaun of the Dead is one of the most gruesome death scenes that I've ever witnessed in any movie ever. And all in all, I think the movie's flawless. Shaun of the Dead is like not only the best British comedy flick I've seen, it's simply the best horror comedy zombie film, period. It's clever, it's witty, it's sweet, it's nasty and at times gory and horrific. Shaun of the Dead just has it all. I don't... surprisingly, even this is a film even George Romero himself enjoyed. The plot is definitely simple too. Shaun is a guy who's not having a good week. His coworkers don't have respect for him. His uptight stepfather is on his back, and his beloved girlfriend Liz has had enough of his laziness and inconsideration. And Shaun, although really Shaun's not really that bad of a guy, he just has no ambition and seems to prefer the company of his unemployed flat-out video game-obsessed slob of a flatmate Ed to anyone else. And as if that were not enough, the dead have risen and are walking the earth in search of human flesh to feast upon. And Shaun doesn't really notice this fact as quick as he should, but Shaun is somewhat of a zombie himself. He's lost in his own world, he's distracted by his own thoughts, and he strolls right past the rotting cadavers that now fill the streets of Britain, and not even news flashes could get through to Shaun. As of course, in an incredibly hysterical scene, he channels search rapidly, every station finishing the sense of the one before and giving everyone but the oblivious Shaun the grim news of what is happening in the world. And when Shaun and Ed finally do realize what is happening, it then becomes to race against time, to save Shaun's mom, rescue Liz, and go to the pub where they can wait out the zombie infestation with a pint and a smoke. But of course, we all know, not everything goes as smoothly as planned, because there's undead flatmates, the dead white with bitey zombies along the way, petty arguments between friends and Ed's cell phone going off in inopportune moments. But Shaun, armed with a cricket bat, is determined to save the woman he loves and nothing is going to get in his way. The film should be, it's kind of like this comedy version of Dawn of the Dead from George A. Romero, because apparently both films are cleverly sarcastically comment on our zombified society and show no difference between the living and the living dead. And there's not much gore here though, but there's definitely one very unexpected and 70-worthy moment in Shaun when the zombies rip a living man to shreds, yanking out his intestines and tearing off his limbs. Easily. It's just easily one of the goriest scenes in comedy movies. If for a low-budget film, the zombies actually do look pretty menacing here, and there's definitely some some minor scary moments to be found in Shaun of the Dead. There's even some touching scenes between Shaun and his mom and dad, or stepdad, as I should say. Shaun himself, this is a movie where a guy named Shaun is literally forced to grow up and take charge as the zombies close in around them. And Simon Pegg, both the joint writer and main star of the film, has been his comedic force for some time, especially in the fantastic BBC, especially in a majority of the other stuff I've seen him in. And in a nutshell, the film is not only a horror comedy, it's also a romantic comedy with zombies, who appear for no good clear reason, and the film is an amazing blend of the funny, the violent, and the poignant. And Simon Pegg literally casts himself as just one hell of a serious loser in this film, not in the American form of I'm a loser but I work in TV and stuff, like not like not like how Bruce Almighty does it. Pegg Shaun is actually this genuine loser, an extremely recognizable one too. He's an everyday man who works for an electrical retailer, and his life is just plain dull and disappointing. And it's where the comedy comes from in this film. There's two scenes in the film which definitely summarize this. And it's literally, both scenes of them involve literally Shaun walking to a nearby corner shop. And the first time Shaun plods semi-comatose to the store, we simply get the feeling that he is this loser, but by the time the film shows him making the same journey again, we realize there's a lot more going on. And the scene played with such exquisite subtleness that it has to be definitely one of the funniest scenes I've seen in any film. And not that this film is subtle ever, because there's a stunning array of visual comedy, one-liners, and some digs at all other films in the horror genre. And some of you horror fans obviously know the character of Ash from the Evil Dead films. Like, he remained pretty much the supreme demon slayer in the horror genre. But you know, like, around this time, Campbell pushed around 40. And not everyone, since Evil Dead wasn't exactly a overly known to the public franchise at the time it came out, some people today might not even be familiar with Ash Williams in the Evil Dead series until they eventually end up watching the series, so there's that. But you can see the character of Shaun kind of a lot like Ash Williams from the Evil Dead films. And another thing about this film too, it begins firmly in very British comedy drama territory. It's got a number of stylistic directional flourishes that definitely seem like a cross between Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream and Danny Boyle's Trainspotting. And the horror material enters gradually, beginning with a couple background gags, and then entering Desolation Boulevard territory, like another Boyle reference, this time to 28 Days Later as well. And this arrives in the ghost of Shaun crossing over to the corner store to buy his morning soda, and he doesn't even notice the deserted streets or store because he's so hungover from the night before. As well, like, he just goes to the shop, doesn't even notice the empty streets, he doesn't even notice the blood smeared on the store window, just gets a Diet Coke and an ice cream cone, leaves the change on the counter, and just leaves, not even noticing any of the zombies. Because he's still drunk from the night before, when him and Ed were drinking away. And before long, a ragtag bunch of heroes are in the midst of this full-fledged zombie apocalypse, or the traditional slow-moving zombie type, not the running type like 20 Days Later. And they acknowledge the cultural differences that strict gun laws bring about. They have to use their wits to commit the requisite head-busting, enlisted unwanted LBs, cricket bats, shovels, and other items for the job. And it would be easier for any of our heroes for a slice bit athletic and had any aim, and they get the job done though, more or less. A further genre fan fun, director Edgar Wright and co-writer Pegg, they insert a lot of references to other zombie films too. When it comes to explaining the source of this zombie epidemic, you got the scientific explanations given to Resident Evil, all of Romero's Dead films such as The Night of the Living Dead, and there's some mentioned in the background, and it resolutely cut off before they're even finished. And part of the reason might be that the explanations are definitely ridiculous, and we don't really care much about them. We just want to get to the cool zombie stuff, like the limbs being torn off, the guts being eaten, and the brains being blown or smashed out of skulls. And Wright and Pegg also insert clever nods to the subtext of zombie films. And Shaun looks and walks like a zombie when he's waking up. We see zombie like office workers, retail workers, and so on. There's even an amusing nod to filmic attempts to study and tame zombies. And also there's organized materialistic defenses. They're interesting, more subtle, and original zombie subtext in Shaun of the Dead, and such as the mirrored scene where Shaun and his crew meet up with Yvonne and her crew. And the film balances the humor excellently with a decent zombie story, and the rated characters within are not just there for laughs. There's plenty of poignant moments scattered throughout. The movie has issues of family, love, friendship, along with growing older and accepting responsibility are contained with the script, much in a way that kind of God, I'm sorry guys, I'm just lost for words. It's the perfect homage to zombie flicks, and a social satire too. It's definitely towards the early stage of the film that definitely sees the most of the population can be confused for zombies anyway. As for the end scenes of the film, it definitely keeps you laughing right to the end. When it comes to the best parts of the movie, I think are easily the gradual evolution from a romantic comedy and into a horror film that takes place over the first third or so. Our movie literally kicks off with a serious conversation between Shaun and his girlfriend Liz, and they discuss how unhappy Liz is with the way the relationship is going. They each complain about the other's friends, all of whom are sitting right there listening. Shaun's inability to find anything else to do other than hang out at the same pub, the Winchester, and look at the same dead-end job have led to Liz issuing an ultimatum. It's either change things or she is leaving. This movie is so effective both as a horror film and a romantic comedy, and at the same time going significantly out of its way to make fun of those two genres. My favorite moment is the way the sound is manipulated early in the film. Horror films seem to manipulate sound to create scares and tension, but this movie makes fun of the tactic, and it gives extreme close-ups and vastly amplified sounds for things like brushing teeth and spray jam on toast. And easily from... And we look also, by the time we notice the zombie apocalypse has really kicked in, it's this funny scene, where after Shaun is drunk and wakes up the next morning, he goes across the street to the corner store. He does every day though, and doesn't, but this time, same as he did in the scene before, during the other beginning he also does this too, but the civilization was normal. Here, he does it again, and he doesn't notice the chaos that erupted overnight. Just gets his stuff, doesn't notice any of the zombies, it's dead empty. He's calling for the store and we're like, where are the magazines? I'll just leave the change here. And he just goes back home. And by the time he gets back, we have another hilarious scene where Ed and Shaun find a zombie stuck in their backyard, unaware of where she is or where to go. And it's a perfect example where the movie most sharply departs from an additional zombie movie, and Shaun and Ed don't react like actors in a gore movie. They react like normal people would in such a situation. Then the zombie girl turns around and they look at her shocked and laugh how drunk she must be because they must think she's drunk too. And when she falls and suffers a significant injury, only to get right back up, the look of Shaun and Ed's faces are definitely priceless. And from this point, the movie turns into the more traditional horror film, and it maintains its originality and romantic comedy portion by stopping occasionally to remind you that the other plot has not been forgotten. There are times throughout the movie where the characters are surrounded by zombies and stop completely to argue about their personal differences. And at one point, they're surrounded by hundreds of zombies only a few feet away, and Ed stops to sit casually on a nearby bench and talk to someone on his cell phone. Then Shaun smacks it out of his hand and tells him that's exactly the problem with him. Right there. And that's the time, and that's literally the scene right there where Shaun really starts to grow up. And really starts to show his character development here. He's kind of done with this, he's kind of getting fed up with his and Ed's slacker antics, and he tells Ed that he needs to drop his antics and he needs to start being a grown-up too. And I think that where Shaun of the Dead is the most successful in the blending of these two seemingly incompatible storylines. A lesser movie would have likely tried to mix together a romantic comedy and a horror movie and end up screwing them both up, trying to please everyone and pleasing no one. Shaun of the Dead actually tries to please everyone and succeeds because it doesn't disenfranchise anyone. It doesn't start as a romantic comedy, then just turn into a horror movie that sells a romantic comedy because Liz fell back in love with Shaun when the course of the horror portion had become a hero. That's how you script a movie with a premise like this. And of course, you've got many other good comic characters here. It's great to see some other good comic characters in one movie, like Lucy Davis from The Office here. You even got a tiny cameo from Martin Freeman. Bill Nighy even was great as always, but had a more serious role more than a comic one. And of course, Simon Pegg easily was probably the best performance in this whole movie. Shaun is easily probably the best character he's played. Too, with especially of all the collaborations he's done with Edgar Wright. Ever since this movie, he's been known as one of the best British comedians out there, and he even worked with Wright and Frost in two more films like Hot Fuzz and The World's End. And the zombies in this film, they look good. They got the wide eyes and the visible wounds there where they were attacked. And easily one of my other favorite pieces is when the gang's trying to get into the Winchester. Ed's phone goes off like I've explained. How dumb could someone like Ed be to answer a phone when he should be acting like a zombie in the midst of lots of zombies? And I also like it when the news reporter is literally saying that everyone must not panic. So what do Shaun and Ed do when they see a zombie? Screaming around outside. And now that they get rid of this walking plague, they throw LPs at it in the vain hope that will pierce the skull and kill it outright, because they find out in order to kill a zombie you have to destroy its brain, which they try to do, and none of that shit works because they have such shitty weapons. That's that. And that quote I found here that I easily love, how this scene goes like, Stone Roses? No. Second Coming? I liked it. Or Dallas Drills? Chuck it. It's their records. They're trying to throw their records at the zombies. They find out a record actually cut the zombie's head, so they decide to throw their records, and they're deciding which ones they want to get rid of. Or another quote. It's not hip hop, it's electro. And there's also many other funny moments in this movie too. It's where Shaun gets dumped, then he and Ed start making up stories about the barflies in the Winchester, and casting them as retired gangsters and ex-prostitutes. And then as they're leaving the Winchester bar, they break into White Lines by Mill Mill, and the zombies in the background like, he didn't say Bass. Or Freeze. What a tit. Or after Shaun has restored the power by working the breakers at the back of the Winchester, an outdoor light literally shows a mob of zombies through the window behind him, and Shaun responds by just turning off the light, closing the shade, and just slowly strolling back out to the gang in the pub. And of course, let's not forget, the number one funniest moment, and one of the funniest moments in cinema as well, is Shaun's entire walk to the mart the morning of the apocalypse. He just walks through his morning usual shopping routine, in an exact replica. He doesn't even notice he's in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. He doesn't notice the empty cars. Just goes into the shop, gets a Diet Coke, gets an ice cream cone for Ed, and he's like, where's the cashier? Like, he doesn't seem to notice. He thinks the cashier's still in the store, but there's a zombie right behind him, so he just leaves a change, and he just goes back home. And there's more zombies on the street as he's walking past them, just oblivious to all of them. Which is, now that's an easily comedy moment right there. And the finale pays off very well too. We're in this scene, in the finale, once they're in the Winchester, but the zombies do manage to see them anyway. They manage to get into the pub, and they devour David. But then, after they find out that Shaun's mom's been bitten, and Shaun had to kill her, David tries to flee, but he gets devoured and killed by the zombies. Diane then rushes into the horde, brandishing David's attached leg, opening the door and allowing them to enter it. The zombified Pete appears and bites Ed, and Shaun shoots and kills Pete. Then Shaun lets Ed take cover behind the bar, which Shaun sets ablaze, and the shells left on the floor ignite, and they kill several zombies by chance. And the three take refuge in a cellar, where they realizing that only they have 2 bullets left, and Shaun and Liz contemplate suicide while Ed elects to be devoured by the zombies. And Shaun discovers a cake lift that opens out onto the street, and Ed volunteers to stay with the rifles as zombies break in. And the British, but however, just as Shaun and Liz leave the area and get out into the street, the British army arrive with Yvonne in tow, gun down the horde, and they take Shaun and Liz to safety. And then 6 months we find out have passed, and it turns out that civilization has returned to normal, and the surviving zombies are being used as cheap labor and entertainment. Liz has moved in with Shaun, and Shaun keeps the zombified Ed tethered in his sheet, and they play video games together. And that's how the movie ends. So Shaun and Liz are back together again. They've moved in together. The world's back to normal. There's still some zombies remaining, but they're now held captives for cheap labor and entertainment. And Ed is still alive as a zombie, except he's now chained there so he can't bite Shaun, he can't escape, he can't start another apocalypse. He's living in the shed with Shaun, in Shaun's shed, and him and Shaun are still playing video games occasionally. So it's a good ending right there. And I like that for once we see an ending in a zombie movie where the world was restored at a zombie outbreak for a change. It's not that, oh no, it's going to spread around the world, or the survivors flee for another area, and that's that. No, this one actually ends with them winning, and the zombies remaining get captured, and the world getting restored. Now, when it comes to nitpicks for Shaun of the Dead, would I have any nitpicks with this film? Nothing. Because I think Shaun of the Dead is just another rare example of a film with no flaws, because I think it's perfect that way. Shaun of the Dead is easily a hilarious masterpiece that shows how to really do a horror comedy the right way, and should always be watched by anyone who loves the zombie genre. So, in the end, Shaun of the Dead is worth a watch and buy if you love horror comedies and zombie movies rolled into one genre, because you will get an enjoyable, great flick out of this movie. Anyways, that's it for my review of Shaun of the Dead. If you're wondering how I'm going to rank Shaun of the Dead, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you love horror comedies and zombie movies in one film, then totally watch and buy Shaun of the Dead for your collection for sure, because it is a film you never want to miss. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Shaun of the Dead, I'm going to give Shaun of the Dead a damn fucking 10 out of 10. There we go. That's it for my review of Shaun of the Dead. So you're wondering, what is going to be the next episode? Well, our next episode is going to be, we're going to be going into the vampire genre. And this next episode is going to be one requested by another YouTube buddy, Shadow. And it's for a film from Francis Ford Coppola. And it was his attempted adaptation of an infamous vampire. Yes, guys, 1992's Bram Stoker's Dracula is going to be the next episode. And with that being said, that'll be it for this episode. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.